Hi, everyone. Okay, so I wasn't going to do this today, but um, after receiving the results, I decided to. So um, I was going to do another chapter today, but that's okay. We'll talk about my complaint to the Law Society in regards to Miss Aquila and Madison Parker. So both of them work for TDS Law, and as I've mentioned before, Alexandra Aquila is daughter of Justice Frank Aquila, who is under the family department in the Queen of Courts bench, and she works. She's doing family law, so I mean that is a major conflict of interest right there. But Um, I've mentioned this to the Law Society a few times now, and they don't seem to think it is, which is very strange. But that aside, let's go through this. So this is a typical complaint form for the Law Society. So as you can see, I've filled it out um, and put Alexandra Aquila and Madison Parker as the lawyers that I'm complaining about. So under the what are your main concerns? I put poor, bad legal advice and advising her client to violate a court order. Um, Number 8 says, if you have tried to discuss this concern with the lawyer, please provide details. And I said, I have numerous times tried and always get a rude response from Miss Aquila, which is true. Uh, a few months ago, I inquired as to what Madison Parker's involvement is with the case, as she is a lawyer and is not on the court registry. But she has been to court for this case and CC'd on every email. There's been a few times where Miss Aquila hasn't gone and Madison Parker has. And okay, I understand that maybe a lawyer stands in every once in a while, but she's been going to court almost every time since September. She's also CC'd on every email, which indicates she is not just a stand in. Um, I said, I am told that by Miss Aquila that she has been involved in the past at previous hearings. Or sorry, I was told by Miss Aquila that when I emailed her asking what the involvement is, Miss Aquila just really responded, well, she's been involved in the past and at previous hearings. And of course, that email wasn't helpful at all because, of course, I know that. But the problem is, that wasn't my question. My question is, what is her involvement in this case? If she is Owen's second lawyer, then why isn't she on the court registry? If she isn't a second lawyer, why is she being involved in this case? Is she training with Miss Aquila? Is she like if you look at the Law Society, I'm just gonna type um look her up. So if you look at the Law Society, I believe when I looked her up last time, I think it said she was practicing before Miss Aquila. So if you go to the Law Society of Manitoba website, it's lawsociety.mb.ca, and you go to the public and find a lawyer. Well, if you go to lawyer lookup and type in her name, it says where she works, that she's practicing, and her call date was June 16th, 2022. Okay, so not that long ago. Maybe she is training. But if that's the case, then she should then Miss Aquila should have said something. And regardless, she is still a lawyer, right? Um, it doesn't make sense that she's registered with the Law Society and training. I don't think that really makes a lot of sense. So, um, I think she's a full lawyer, but at the same time, then why is she being involved in this case? Why doesn't she have her own caseload, right? Like like I said before, is she some lawyer lackey? I don't think she is, but if she isn't, that means that Owen has a second lawyer who is not on the court registry. Now, getting back to the complaint form, I said, I want to know what Madison Parker's official involvement is in this case, as she is hired. Is she hired as a second lawyer for Owen Johnson? And if so, why is she not on the court registry? If not, why is she being CC'd on every email? Second, I want to know what Alexandra Aquila advised her client, or if Alexandra Aquila advised her client to refuse access to the children, as I'm supposed to have visits with them weekly. Most recently, I've been denied phone conversations with them. So I haven't been allowed to see them since November 2022. And a week ago now, Owen refused to allow me to even speak with them. In the body of the complaint, I said, included is the court order from the justice pronounced October 25th, 2022, an unfair and unjust trial that occurred while I was a client of Legal Aid Manitoba. Legal Aid Manitoba could not find me a lawyer. I was told that I was being forced to self-represent while my YouTube channel, or while my YouTube channel is what me self-representing looks like. When CLA chooses to work with me to help find me a lawyer, then I'll stop posting on my YouTube channel. So they sent me a list, but that doesn't help me because the majority of the people that are on that list have already said they either can't take the case, they've got too heavy of a caseload, or it's a conflict of interest. And I will be posting these rejection letters and who I've contacted in following a following video. So, going back to the body of the complaint, it says this complaint will be uploaded to YouTube channel and onto my personal site, singleparentingmanitoba.com. This is a direct result of the power differential that exists with Miss Aquila being able to practice in Winnipeg when her father is a federal family justice in the same. Attached, you will find that Owen Johnson claims, after consulting with his counsel, that he will not be following the court order. So, what the email suggests is that Miss Aquila advised her client to ignore a justice's order. So, that indicates one of two things. She believes, which she's probably right, that if she believes this, that she has enough power and pull to influence a judge's decision to have him and ignore the fact that Owen is violating a court order. Number two, she feels that she can confidently advise her client to ignore that court order without going through the proper procedures of going back to court to get the court order revised. That indicates that, or going back to the body, this indicates that the order indicates that I'm allowed 6 hours a week with the kids. It also indicates that he is responsible for approving the supervisor. Nowhere in the court order does it state that I'm responsible for finding the supervisor. I've given Owen Johnson names, all of which he has rejected for one reason or the other. Today I received an email from him stating that the first person CFS rejected. Now, an interesting thing with CFS, if somebody is being investigated for something, and it could just be something random, like somebody called on somebody saying that, I don't know, anything, absolutely anything. And as long as CFS has to investigate something, that person will never be approved for a supervisor. It doesn't matter if they have a spotless criminal record. It doesn't matter if they have a spotless child abuse registry check and all that. The only thing they look at is that there's an open file. So for Owen to say now that the CFS file is closed, that CFS didn't approve this person, well, you know what? He can go through the emotions of looking at the criminal record, getting the child abuse registry check done. This person probably has it probably has already been dealt with. So for him to actually say, well, I'm not looking at this, he is refusing to go through the steps that he himself is implementing before um, before approving somebody for to be a supervisor. He is refusing to follow he's refusing to look into the person. The second person, he is stating that he's had no contact with. Well, how is that my fault? Pick up the phone, call them. Not a hard concept. Um, and I mean, I realize the courts could go back and say, well, you could call them too and whatever, but you know what? I'm not the one supervised, or I'm not the one responsible for approving the person. If I was, that person would already be approved and I'd already be having visits. It's not my responsibility to be going back and forth in between the two and trying to figure stuff out. I mean, I can try, absolutely, but realistically, it is up to the two of them to talk. Um, and I mean, out of in all this time since the trial, I don't believe he's done one criminal record check, one child abuse registry check, and those are conditions that he has implemented. It never was in the court order. Um, okay, so going back to this, Owen Johnson he has refused to look into the names which I have supplied. He has refused to put forth names of his own, and he has refused to supervise. He claims that it is of the advice of his counsel that he is denying me visits as a result. So he's claiming that Miss Aquila and Madison Parker have advised him to ignore a court order in order to deny me visits. Um, I want to know if the council advised him, or I want to know if his council advised him to refuse to supervise when he also has refused to put forth names for the 6-hour visit, or if he's choosing to do this of his own against the advice of a lawyer, violating a court order. Also, I want to know if they advised him not to allow me to speak with the kids, or if he is choosing also to do the same against the advice of his lawyers. So I'm basically saying to the Law Society, you know, here is a lawyer who their client, and I have evidence of this, their client is saying that their lawyer feels that she's above a judge and can advise her client to violate the court order that the justice signed, that the justice made a decision on. Um, and I'm also asking the Law Society, okay, and there's not a no contact order with the kids. I am the other parent, and I can prove that those phone calls were completely fine. So the only one rude on there was Owen. So at that point, why am I the one being denied the visits? And was it of the advice of his lawyer? Because if it was the advice of his lawyer, then his lawyer is advising him not to allow me access, like complete access, because complete access has been denied to me, both physical access and simply talking on the phone. Like in the next few weeks, Mother's Day is, and I don't know whether I'm even going to be able to talk to my kids. Like, that is not right. Um, Second, I want to know what Madison Parker's involvement is in this case, as she is not on the court registry, and if she is going to actively involve herself in the case, since or as she has been since September 2022, then she should be on the registry as Owen's second lawyer, showing that he has two. Now, isn't it interesting that he has two lawyers, but keeps at almost at every single case conference and hearing, he's always crying on how broke he is. Meanwhile, I can't even afford one. Well, I'm looking for one and I'm hoping that I can afford the retainer. Let's put it that way. Anyways, going forward. So this is the last part of the complaint. This is the email. The email showing. So here Owen is saying, Susan, after giving it a lot of thought as well as talking to my legal counsel, so this is at the advice of his legal counsel, I have decided it is not in my best interest or the kids' best interest to have supervised visits with you and the kids. So he is violating a court order. He is saying that he and his lawyer know better than a justice. Him and his lawyer have decided against the order that they are going to deny me visits. His lawyer and him decided that they won't go through the proper procedures of going back to court to get the court order revised or call an emergent hearing or anything like that. They have decided they know better than a judge, and they're not going to allow me visits. After all the false accusations and police calls you have made against me and my family, I will not be putting myself in that position. Okay, well, not false accusations, and I'm going to be proving that in the chapters. And yes, I have called police because I want to know the kids are safe since I'm not being allowed to talk to them. Like I had said in the past, if you want to go through the access for a 2-hour visit once a week, we can set that up ASP. Or you can just give me the names of a potential supervisor and I can get them the checks done. Okay, I've given him potential supervisors and he's rejected them all. As for the access agency, he's telling me that I'm now only going to be allowed a third of the visit of what the judge ordered. So I no longer am able to do the 6-hour visit, which the judge put in that order. Again, it's a violation of the court order. As for phone calls, feel free to call the kids and you can talk to them. You know my number. As for Kids Messenger, you need to add me as a friend on Facebook again so I can link it up. Okay, well, I got to create a new Facebook account because I'm not giving him my other one. And as for that one's on me. However, with the kids, I did call and it lasted 3 phone calls before he told me that I could no longer talk to them. 3 phone calls, and I have them all recorded. Okay, so we've already, you guys have already seen the order numerous times, I think. So this is the response I got back from the Law Society, and I gotta say, I was pretty disappointed in their response. Now, I submitted this on the 27th of April this year. So literally not even 48 hours later, okay? Because we're talking work days, so Monday through Friday, right? So not even 20 or 48 hours later, I'm getting a response. That is not enough time to investigate, first of all. You wouldn't think. I mean, the average professional body, when an investigation happens, they go through multi steps to to look into the complaint. This complaint was dismissed after 48 hours. Um, and we'll we'll read this out. So, um, the Law Society letter says, I've evaluated your complaint about Ms. Aquila. In doing so, I've received copies of the following information provided electronically. Complaint help form, April 27th. So it's listing off what I've submitted. The oh the decisions, they say every complaint about a lawyer is made to the Law Society, is evaluated to determine whether on its face it includes substantive information giving rise to a concern of incompetence, professional misconduct, or conduct unbecoming a lawyer. If it does not, we are required to conclude the complaint without investigation. Um, my job is to assess your complaint in an objective manner as whether it includes sufficient detail and supportive documentation so as to give rise to a concern about the lawyer's competence or conduct. After careful consideration of the information that you have provided, I have concluded that your complaint does not include substantive information sufficient to establish a concern of professional misconduct by Ms. Aquila. As a result, we conclude your complaint without investigation or other action. So they just basically said that they didn't investigate. See? As a result, we must conclude your complaint without investigation or action. So I submitted a complaint to the Law Society, and without even looking at it, they're dismissing it. Now, you got to wonder about the competence of the investigation procedures of the Law Society when somebody brings forth a complaint about a lawyer saying, look, I've got proof that this lawyer is advising their clients to ignore judges' orders. And the Law Society is going, well, too bad, so sad. That's okay. Go up among your business, little lawyers, and advise your clients to do whatever. And don't worry about the justice's order. I mean, it means absolutely nothing, right? I mean, isn't that the message being sent there? I'm asking. I'm not telling. I'm asking. um anyways, so going back to this, it says, I understand from the material you submitted that your complaint is that Miss Aquila has not provided you with satisfactory explanations as to Madison Parker's involvement with Mr. Johnson's legal matter. You stated that you have made inquiries to Mrs. Parker's involvement with legal matters, and that you have simply been told that by Miss Aquila that she is involved in past hearings. You also complain that Madison Parker's name does not appear on the KB court registry, and advise counsel Mr. Johnson is violating a court order. By making a complaint, you stated that you want to know Madison Parker's official involvement in this case, as she is hired as a second lawyer for Owen Johnson, and if so, why is she not on the court registry? If not, why is she being CC'd on all the emails? You stated that Mrs. Parker is going to actively is is going to actively involved in this case as she has been since September 2022. She should be on the court registry as Owen Johnson's second lawyer, showing that he has two. You also stated that you want to know if counsel advised Mr. Johnson to refuse to supervise, and if his counsel advised him not to allow to speak with the kids, or um, or if this is his choosing to do so against the advice of his lawyers. The concerns you've identified about Miss Parker name not appearing on the KB court registry is not a concern about Miss Aquila's professional conduct. Okay, but I didn't say it was a complaint against her. Well, I suppose I did because I did ask her point blank because she is the lawyer on record. So the fact that I'm asking, like, why are you CCing this person? I mean, I'm sure as sooner or later there's going to be a question raised on why am I putting everything out there? Like, why would I want to do that? And I kind of addressed that in the notes of um my last video, but the same thing could be said about Miss Aquila. Why is she CCing people who have no involvement in this case? And if they have an involvement in this case, why aren't they on the court registry? One of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next video is I found a really good video on civil procedures and the importance of um, lawyers putting themselves on record. And there is like it's part of the legal procedure. So when the Law Society knows it's part of the legal procedure and they're just dismissing it, what they're saying to the lawyers is that those legal procedures, those steps that are involved in the court process, they are no longer relevant. They don't matter, and that lawyers can just do what they want and ignore the process. Well, those processes, they weren't implemented randomly. They were implemented for reasons. They were implemented to protect individuals and also make sure that everything goes um, as it should in court. I would assume, but um, for whatever reason, Miss Aquila seems to be consistently being able to overlook those procedures, ignore those procedures, and just do whatever she wants. And the people that she's connected with seem to be able to do that too, or at least that is what I'm finding now. So the fact that Madison Parker is actively working on this case and she is not on the King of Court bench registry, again, it raises some red flags. Um, and yeah, I will be putting a link to the video in the bottom of these comments, and um, we'll touch on the video in the next video as well. Don't know if I said that quite right, but anyways, so let's go through this a little bit more. Um, it may raise a possible issue with respect to information maintained by the registry, which is outside of the society's jurisdiction. Huh. Well, if it might raise an potential issue with respect to information maintained by the registry, that would indicate that there is a chance that the registry isn't correct, which now we're looking into well, is the file accurate then, right? Um if you believe that Ms. Parker should be listed on the registry, you can raise such a concern with the courts. Okay. Well, I'm not quite sure how I would um put in that complaint, but I can look into it. Um From the material and explanations you have provided, it appears that Miss Parker's involvement has been explained to you by Miss Aquila. What, that she showed up at hearings? That isn't an explanation. That's an observation. Um, an explanation would be yes, she's Owen Johnson's second lawyer. An explanation isn't, well, she's been involved in past hearings. That is, again, that's not an explanation. I'm asking what her involvement is with the case. I'm not asking if she walked through the door. That I know. Okay. Um, Miss Aquila is not required to provide you with any additional explanation or further explanation what her involvement is. Huh. So the Law Society is now saying that I don't need to know who the opposing party's lawyers are. Keep in mind, according to the courts right now, I'm self represented. So wouldn't it be a good idea for the self representing person to know who the opposing party's lawyers are? And isn't it interesting that the Law Society is saying, you don't need to know that. It doesn't matter who the opposing party's lawyers are. And Mrs. Parker and Alexander Aquila don't need to tell you. Interesting. How can a court case function efficiently when you don't even know who the opposing party's counsel is? Um, you've detailed concern that you believe that Mr. Johnson has breached a court order. This is a legal issue regarding determination of the courts. Society cannot determine whether Mr. Johnson has breached a court order or if he has otherwise acted unreasonably in complying with the court order's decisions. Now, I didn't say that. What I did say was either Miss Aquila is advising her client to breach a court order, in which case it's on Miss Aquila, or he's violating court order against her wishes. Now, if he's violating the court order against her wishes, then there's no need for the complaint besides the Miss Parker thing. But if he isn't violating, or if he isn't acting on the advice of his, or sorry, I'm saying that wrong. If he is acting by him, or if he's acting on the advice of his lawyers, then it is um, a law society issue. It should be because this lawyer is telling her clients that they do not need to follow court orders. Now, what lawyer that didn't have significant pull, influence on the courts, and political sway to sway a judge one way or another would tell their clients to violate a court order? Like, it doesn't make sense. Uh, I don't know a single lawyer out there that would tell their clients that. But Miss Aquila apparently is, and the Law Society does not seem to have an issue with it. Um, and the reason I asked if Owen is acting on his own, because that will tell them whether Miss Aquila actually advised her client. If he wrote in and said, "No, she didn't advise me. I'm acting on my own," then Miss Aquila is in the clear. But he if he writes to the Law Society and says, yes, that email is accurate and Miss Aquila advised me to violate a court order and advised me not to allow her visits, well, then guess what? Then Miss Aquila just told her client to ignore a court order. Um, the society cannot determine whether Mr. Johnson has breached the court order. We've already read that. You may wish to consider what legal options or remedies you have to address these legal issues. Notwithstanding this, you have complaints that Ms. Aquila has counseled Mr. Johnson to breach a court order. Your views about Ms. Aquila's actions appear to be based solely upon conjecture and speculation. Well, not entirely. I've got an email from Owen Johnson, and I would say that's pretty good evidence, pretty good proof. Um, the fact that they're brushing it off as conjecture and speculation, do they know how to read? I'm kidding with that. I know the Law Society, the people there know how to read. They're lawyers, but I mean, come on. Conjecture and speculation. Meanwhile, there's an email there stating that that's been the advice of his legal counsel. Um, that's not accurate. Like the conjuncture and speculation, it's not accurate. I mean, you've got physical evidence there. They should be taking it into account. Um, you appear to want the society to investigate your suspicions so that your suspicions can be confirmed. You have provided no information to support your conclusions that Miss Aquila has breached her professional duties in her um, re- representation of Mr. Johnson. As such, your complaint does not give rise to concerns of professional misconduct by Miss Aquila, and accordingly, it must be concluded without investigation or other action taken by the Law Society. So there we go. They will not complain. Now, there is a review piece, and I have written to the complaints commissioner and asked them to review this because I really do feel that okay, so Miss Aquila clearly has some political sway, some she can obviously sway the court's decisions on things right now. It is not so far fetched that she can sway the Law Society's views on things right now either. If she can sway judges' views and decisions, she can most certainly sway people at the Law Society. So at least um now I'm not sure if that's what's happening. I'm not going to say that's what's happening. I'm saying it's a possibility. So, but I mean, like, the fact that the Law Society is not even willing to investigate this. Meanwhile, it says right there in black and white in Owen's email, after giving it a lot of thought as well as talking to my legal counsel, I have decided not, I have decided it's not in my best interest um, to you have me supervise or have me well have me seeing the kids essentially. So anyways, um, there you have it. Now we're going to go through the next one with Mrs. Parker. Um, I evaluated your complaint against Madison Parker. In doing so, I've reviewed copies of the following. Okay, we're just going to go down to the reasons. Oh, the decision. Again, I swear they just copied and pasted that. Um, let's go to the reasons actually. The concerns you identified about Miss Parker's name not appearing on the KB court registry is not a concern about Mrs. Parker's professional conduct and warrants an investigation by the society. It may raise a possible issue again with the registry. So again, the registry might be incorrect. Um, From the materials and explanations that you've provided, it appears Miss Parker's involvement has been explained to you by Miss Aquila, which it hasn't, that Miss Parker is involved with Mr. Johnson's legal matter. Um, Ms. Parker is not required to provide you with any additional explanation or further explanation on what her involvement is. So like again, I'm supposed to be self-representing because I don't have a lawyer, right? Because when I was on legal aid refused to give me a lawyer, and the justice decided to well, they didn't refuse to give me a lawyer; they couldn't find a lawyer, and the justice decided to go ahead with the trial. So, I mean, I was told that I wouldn't have any choice but to self-represent, and so you would think that a person who's self-representing would be entitled to know who the other party's lawyers are. But according to this, that doesn't seem to be the case. Um, and then again with the review. So, um, that pretty much is the complaint that I put into the Law Society. Again, I'm very disappointed with their response. Um, I did CC the commissioner, and I want a full review done on Miss Aquila and Madison Parker. And the fact that the Law Society even said the court registry might not be correct because Madison Parker isn't named as a counsel on there, huge red flags. But again, um, Alexandra Aquila and now Madison Parker just seem to be flying under the radar and being able to overstep whatever court procedures are in place. So, anyways, I'm going to upload this, and you guys have a good day.